And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the National CyberWatch webinar series. I'm Louis Leitner, Operations Director for the National CyberWatch Center. We'd like to remind you to avoid distractions and interruptions. Please keep your microphone muted during the presentation. There will be a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. Please post your questions in the chat feature in the Zoom meetings window, and we will get all of your questions there to present to today's presenters. Today's webinar is titled Security Culture Change That Sticks and is presented by the Information Systems Security Association. And now I'd like to introduce to you one of today's moderators, Rhonda Farrell. Rhonda serves on the ISSA International Board of Directors and is the founder of the Women in Cybersecurity Special Interest Group. So Rhonda, as soon as we get your slides up, it'll all be yours.
Thank you so much, Louis, for that wonderful introduction. And again, welcome to today's guests, our National CyberWatch Center hosted ISSA Global Security Education and Awareness SIG webinar presentation entitled Security Culture Change That Sticks, presented by Ms. Rebecca Rodskog. I would like to now introduce you to the ISSA International Security Education and Awareness Special Interest Group Chair, Ms. Jill Fagans, whom will co-moderate this section. Welcome, Jill.
Well, thanks, Rhonda. Let me give you a little bit of an introduction to ISSA before we turn things over to Rebecca today. With over 11,000 members and 130 chapters, over 90 countries, ISSA is committed to developing and connecting cybersecurity leaders globally. We'd like to thank our members for joining us today, and we certainly encourage you to become part of our growing community. During the presentation, we strongly encourage you to ask questions at any point in time during the chat interface in the Zoom window. Change slides. Maybe mine's slow. There we go. Okay. Visit the ISSA website at issa.org so you can learn more about our mission, vision, core purpose, and core values. And we have those listed here on the slide for you. They're integrity, excellence, and respect. ISSA works to develop and connect cybersecurity leaders globally within those core value structures. Next slide. There we go. The ISSA strategic goals surrounding leadership, program, and influence are also posted at issa.org. We welcome you to visit our website so you can learn more about the organization. And one of the things we are doing this year that's a little different is we are really calling out chapters that we wanted to put in the spotlight. And our first ISSA Spotlight chapter is the Los Angeles chapter, which is the founding chapter of the Information Systems Security Association, which started in 1982. The LA chapter is a premier catalyst and information source in Southern California for improving the practice of information security. The chapter provides various training classes in information security and IT professionals throughout the year and at the summit. The ISSA LA has a CISO forum that meets quarterly at various companies throughout Southern California for those who aren't actually here in California. The chapter meets monthly and regularly collaborates with other IT and InfoSec organizations, and they regularly have joint meetings with ISACA, OWASP, the Cloud Security Alliance, HTCIA, and the Association of IT Professionals. The vibrant, community-focused, and industry impactful chapter is led by Mr. Richard Greenberg and Mr. Edmund Momartin. ISSA LA has monthly dinner meetings. You can review their event schedule at www.issala.org to sign up. ISSA LA also has what's called Security Summit X. Now, the Security Summit X event is scheduled this year from May 2nd through 4th. This is a absolutely fantastic event. It's 1 to 2 day training classes. They have a Women in Security forum that's on May 3rd and 4th, a CISO forum, a healthcare forum on May 4th. If you're in the area, or even if you would like to interact more with other security professionals, this is really a must-attend event for practitioners as well as executives. You can get additional information on the event as well as register the event at summitxfinal.wpengine.com. And we do have a second Spotlight chapter this month, or this quarter. The second Spotlight chapter is the Sacramento Valley chapter, which will continue our West Coast theme. Sacramento Valley is focused as well on educating and positively impacting the chapter and the surrounding InfoSec community. The growing chapter is led by Mr. Mark Heckman and Ms. Wendy Curl as Vice President. The ISSA Sacramento chapter was recently a lead participant in the Interface Sacramento Conference, which is a free technical and security educational seminar series that's held yearly. This year it was held on February 14th as an all-day event that was held at the Sacramento Convention Center. I've heard some feedback from the event that it was incredibly well attended this year. And it is really a fantastic way to reach out and teach our cybersecurity communities more about our growing industry. So if you are in the area, again, put this on your focus next year so you can come and earn some CPEs and interact with the security community. Our ISSA International Global Security Special Interest Groups are currently serving members in 101 chapters in 98 countries. Now, our goal for 2020 is to serve members in all 137 active chapters, as well as most countries around the world. Next slide, there we go. Our SIG liaison global cities are listed here, so you can see we have quite a footprint for our SIG communities. If you are interested in becoming a SIG liaison for your chapter, you feel free to reach out to us at sigs@issa.org or at actually with SIG or SEA-SIG@issa.org. So, as well as expanding our 2020 challenge to not just all of our chapters, part of our 2020 initiative includes transitioning more than 1,000 current special interest group members into full ISSA membership. We would also like to hold more than 75 SIG branded events globally, and we would like to continue to support our growing youth programs and scholarship funds, and that is growing past $100,000 annually at this point. Now, leading the Security Education and Awareness SIG is not only myself, is also our Chair Emeritus, Mr. Kelly Archer, who I see is on the call today. If you would like to contact either one of us, our details are on this slide. You can also reach out to us at SEA-SIG@ISSA.org. And we would also encourage you to support our highly valued global SIG partners. If your organization is interested in sponsoring or partnering with the SEA-SIG, again, please reach out at the emails that we have previously provided and that you will see again later at the end of the presentation. All right, so moving on to today's panel presentation, Security Culture Change That Sticks. We're talking about driving a culture of security through design thinking and innovation. So the goal here is that everyone is going to own security in the organization, and our esteemed presenter, Ms. Rebecca Rodskog, is going to offer top-notch advice on how we as cyber practitioners can advocate, evangelize, and innovate stronger cyber outcomes. Now, Ms. Rodskog is coming to us with a vast amount of experience and is a workplace crusader helping organizations transform outdated and non-scalable practices into future-thinking, market-leading cultures where their people can thrive. She's on a mission to make organizations better places to work so that all of us can do the work that matters and play to our strengths while we still meet our organization's goals. Rebecca is an experienced consultant in the field of organizational transformation, change management, and innovation. Her 20-plus years of experience span both large-scale global projects and small independent one-on-one coaching relationships. Rebecca has worked with clients such as Apple, UPS, and P&G. And beyond consulting, she's also an expert facilitator, coach, and innovator. Rebecca is co-founder and managing partner of Future Leader Now. She's also the CEO and founder of 12 at 12 Women's Network and the Rodskog Change Consulting. Additionally, Rebecca's storied change management background has led her from Pfizer to Procter & Gamble to Accenture. Her speaking engagements cover corporate entities, academia, and nonprofits. She's spoken for everything from Cisco to Columbia. And there's a full detail of a lot of her experience in the slide deck. So she also speaks on the conference circuit where she espouses on topics and advances in culture, future of work, change management, innovation, and creativity, leadership, and transformation. So common enterprise challenges to cybersecurity. Culture change include organizational structure, embedded behaviors, and prevailing mindset. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rebecca so she can get started on the presentation, and we can also all learn about improving our culture.
Great. Thank you so much, Jill and Rhonda. This is Rebecca. Let me just flip over to my presentation. Just give me 1 second as I pull that up. Okay. Are you guys seeing that, Jill and Rhonda?
You're good.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, so hello, everybody. It's good morning for me. I'm on the West Coast, so it's still before noon, and I know you guys are all across the country, and this is being hosted on the East Coast, so good afternoon to all of you and anybody abroad, whatever time of day it is for you. I'm so excited to be here today and just thrilled to talk about this topic, which is so close to the core of what I get up and work on every day around creating culture change that sticks, and specifically for this audience, thinking about how we can have security culture and embed that so that it sticks and it's part of everybody's job. As Jill so wonderfully talked about, my background is I'm the co-founder and managing partner of a consulting company called Future Leader Now. Really the gist of our organization is we help organizations create cultures where their people can thrive. We're experts in innovation, change management, and in culture. And today I'm going to talk to you all about what it takes to create a culture of security in your organization, where security isn't just one function's job, but it's everybody's job. And again, encourage you all to put questions in as we go. We've got a lot to cover in 30 minutes. So if there's something that we didn't go deep into or you have a further question about, please put it in the chat and we'll address it in the last 10 minutes of the call. So a little bit of background on me first, beyond what Jill shared. To power the work with our clients, we are constantly researching, exploring, partnering with organizations who are really pushing the envelope when it comes to valuing culture as the key component to not just organization success, but also individual success, as well as these organizations that are experimenting with new approaches to purposefully create their desired culture, oftentimes using design thinking principles, which is super interesting, right? We think about design thinking as creating great products and services inside to think about how do we create a culture that works the way we have our internal practices and our workplace in a more innovative, future thinking oriented way. So let me start by saying this. We really believe the premise of our work is that a thriving culture is a workplace that is a source of inspiration and fulfillment and joy. And I know that a lot of you might be sitting there thinking like, okay, it's work, right? But we really truly believe that you can create a culture in which this is the case, and we've seen it, we have proof. And that place is a place where people can do their best work. They're not just inspired, they're not just going to work every day to, kind of knock it out and do the things that they're supposed to do, but they're actually doing their best work that's aligned with your organization's values and principles. And we believe that not only are these objectives, both for the individual and the organization, not only are they not mutually exclusive, but they are absolutely achievable and essential. That doing both of those things is actually good for business and frankly, good for the world. So I'm going to get into that a tiny bit more. We're on this mission to help organizations create these workplaces where their people can thrive. If you think about it, the latest Gallup poll put workplace engagement at a startling low. So 70% of our workforce is not engaged or frankly, actively disengaged at work. 70% of the people working today are disengaged or not engaged at work. So common sense, if you just think about it for a second, says that that is no good for us as individuals. I mean, those people are not happy at work and therefore are likely not doing their best work. So that's not good for our organizations, right? If they're not doing their best work, if they're not happy, if they're not thriving, how can they actually be producing in a way that's good for the organization? And then if that is happening across 70% of our organizations, that is no good for our world and our society at large. So just knowing that premise, knowing that we have a lot of work to do, but knowing that there's also organizations out there that are doing this right, we're inspired every day to come and help organizations do that. So let's talk about what quote unquote that is. What is culture? Like, what are we actually talking about here? Our definition of culture is that it's a shared set of beliefs, values, and practices. Culture is something that you can feel in an organization, but that it gets reinforced in everything the organization does, how the organization interacts with each other and the world. It's reflected in personal interactions, in your policies, and your processes, and behaviors, and your mindsets, your products, and your brand. It's a collection of gazillion pieces of evidence that point to who your organization is and what it's about. I know you guys all know what it is when you feel it, but the point of the matter is it's not just something that comes out of thin air. There's a million little pieces that are coming together to define that culture. And it is that shared set of those pieces, those beliefs and values and practices that make up that culture. So let's be clear. A culture exists in every organization. Every organization has a culture, but it's either acting as a booster to achieving your organization's goals or a blocker to achieving your organization's goals. Our goal today on this webinar is to think about how to transform your culture so it can be a booster, one where cybersecurity as everyone's job as an integral part of those beliefs, values, and practices. So the question that I want you guys all to think about as we're going through this is this actually is cybersecurity part of our culture today? So why do we want that? Why do we want cybersecurity to be an integral part of our culture today? This might be obvious to some of you, but the way that Brian Contos articulated this, I thought was quite relevant for our discussion today. Quote unquote, developing a cybersecurity culture achieves two important objectives. One, it intertwines security practices with business operations in order to improve an organization's security posture. And two, it demonstrates that security is not a function relegated to an understaffed and underfunded IT department. And I think that is the whole premise of why we're talking about this today, is that this is obviously point number one, something that we absolutely need. And point number two, something that in order for it to be effective, it needs to be part of everybody's job. Establishing a cybersecurity culture advocates the need that everyone, including executive leadership and management, has to have an equal part in cybersecurity, which is essential for bolstering an organization's resiliency. And when we're talking about employees here, we are talking about all levels of individuals employed by an organization, not just the staff, but every single piece, every single part of the organization, every single person that works there. So let's get into it. How can you build a culture of security that sticks? What I'm going to go over today is 3 things with an asterisk that we have seen successful, thriving cultures, booster cultures, if you will, have done. And basically across the board, every organization that we see where the culture is supporting the objectives of the organization, across the board, they've done these 3 things with an asterisk, and I'll explain that in a second. So we're clear on the goal, right? That we want everyone to own security within the organization. That the ideal state is that this is not the job of just one functional group, but that every employee has and knows their role in cybersecurity and are active and vocal advocates. And unfortunately, for most of our organizations, this is not the case. And to get there, we do need to explore how to shift the mindsets and behaviors of our people within our organizations and how to change the current culture to get the results we desire. So let's get into these key 3 things that you must get right with an asterisk. The very first thing is purpose. Your purpose is your why. Why does the business exist? Why do customers want to buy from your organization? Why are you even there in the first place? What is the impact that you're looking to achieve as an organization? Dan Pink, in his book Drive, notes that one of the 3 items that motivates us as individuals is purpose. Understanding why we're doing what we're doing every day and feeling connected to it. What is that purpose? Now, people get a little concerned about this word purpose because they think it needs to be some lofty goal of solving world hunger or world peace or something like that. But actually it doesn't. It just needs to be tangible, something clear, something that's at the heart of your organization that you can hang all your other hooks onto. This needs to be clear before you figure out your how and what you're doing on an everyday basis, because otherwise it's very hard to get all the parts of your organization working in the same direction and to motivate and engage your employees in a genuine way. So when we think about security, this is important because we know that the biggest breaches happen at the individual level. And that's the reason why we need it to be everyone's job. And so to prevent that, we do need everyone doing their part. And if motivating individuals, if the key point in motivating individuals is for them to be connected to the purpose of an organization, then it follows through that if individuals aren't connected to that purpose of what you're trying to do, it's very hard to motivate them to execute the actions you require, or even be in the right mindset you need to ensure cybersecurity and security. So embedded in this purpose, we need to be thinking about how does being an agent of security, being an advocate of security, owning security, link up to that purpose. So, A, are we clear on our purpose? And B, is it clear how security fits within that purpose? To take another a quote from a survey that KPMG did, their Global Outlook survey in 2015, just to really hone in on the importance of purpose in organizations today. This was at the top of CEO's agenda around understanding how the purpose influences their culture and their ability to be successful. So from that survey, one of their outcomes was this quote: having a purpose that employees can align to, providing the skills and opportunities to learn and grow, and building an inclusive culture are all critical to attracting and retaining the best talent, which in turn helps drive innovation initiatives that drive the business forward. Now, obviously, this is talking on a macro level about culture, not necessarily specifically about security and cybersecurity, but it talks about this importance of purpose being the linchpin around driving towards success. Leaders and organizations with the capacity to inspire, think, act, and communicate from the inside out. So they start with their why, which is the purpose. They communicate their purpose first. They communicate it in a way that drives decision-making behavior, and it literally taps the part of the brain for people that influences behavior. So this is the golden circle from Simon Sinek's work. And he talks about how the center of every company's success is really being able to articulate their why. I know I'm driving this point home a lot because I think people feel like a purpose is almost too, it's not tangible enough. And I want to make sure that you all understand that actually, not only can it be incredibly tangible, it is actually the kind of lightning point for individuals. When they can see that clarity of why I'm doing what I'm doing, then they are that much more motivated. So if the people at your organization actually believe in their why and think, act, and communicate starting with their why, they're going to attract people who believe what they believe and who want to be part of that cause. So if you think about cybersecurity as almost a cause, as this kind of rally cry, if you will, to what we want to do, is when people click in and believe it, it's when they not only start doing the things that you need them to do, but then they start attracting other people along with their cause. So in terms of cybersecurity and your people, all the employees from top to bottom, they really do need to understand how cybersecurity can negatively or positively impact your ability to achieve your why in your organization. If they feel connected to the purpose of what you're trying to do and can see a direct line of that impact of their actions on that why, they're much more likely to take ownership and responsibility for those actions. Without that purpose connection, people feel as if these activities are shoulds or corporate exercises or like things to check off a box that they're required to do. And they frankly don't feel any personal accountability, which at the end of the day, that is what you're looking for in terms of making it everybody's job. Some examples of clear purposes. Google, it's such a great example of really taking the workplace to a very future. They've really set the bar when it comes to thinking differently about how the workplace is. Their mission, which I think is actually they're in the process of refining it for 20 plus years, has been to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. But when they think about their purpose, when they articulate like what they're trying to do every day, this is what you hear. Don't be evil and do cool things that matter. Like that is what they are signing up for every single day. And you can imagine that having that as their banner in their head is something that drives their behaviors, it drives their decisions, it drives their actions every single day. Another example, Airbnb went through a whole process around their branding and their values and their purpose, and they got really clear on what they were trying to create. It wasn't just about people finding a place to stay, because that was already out there. They found from their users and from their hosts and their guests and everything else that it was all about people feeling like they could go somewhere and belong there. Their purpose is around helping people belong anywhere. And you can imagine how that drives their behaviors and their actions, from the customer service person to the person putting the listings out to the person checking on the host, etc. Nintendo, put smiles on the faces of everyone we touch is their purpose. Again, what a clear purpose on, that can help guide behaviors and actions. Lyft, providing communities with welcoming, affordable rides. And Disney, to make people happy. So these don't have to be, saving puppies or solving world hunger, but they do have to be something that's so clear that an individual can connect to. And then thinking about the role that security and cybersecurity plays within that, and whether or not that purpose will bolster or actually act as a barrier, and making sure those two things are in sync is incredibly important. When you're thinking about your why or your purpose, you need to find a way to express the organization's impact on the lives of customers, clients, students, patients, whoever it is that is your ultimate audience or your ultimate user, whoever you're trying to serve. You have to be able to feel it. People have to be connected to it. It has to be emotional. And again, it has to feel almost like a rally cry. Like this is what we're out to do every day. So building off of your why, you need to further ground your organization by exploring the values that you want to emulate, that your team feels will propel your organization to achieve your why through developing what we call your culture code. So this is the second piece. This is the second piece that we see indicative of strong cultures that makes another nod actually to Simon's next work in the Golden Circle, the how. This is the next layer out. What we're seeing is that at the organizations that are building strong cultures is that they've been able to align their organization on a set of values or culture code that expresses how they're going to go about achieving their purpose. So you've got this great purpose everybody can align to. This is the playbook. This is what differentiates organizations, not only in the products and services they offer to the world, but how they go about doing that. It influences individual decision points along the way. And we've seen all sorts of expressions of this. We hear people call them values or commandments or even manifestos. We boil this all down to the culture code, which is what those expressed items are that dictates how your people work. So let me give you some examples of this. Going again on the Google example, this is quite famous, and you can see by reading through it that even today, this came out I think about 3 or 4 years into Google's inception. Even today, they are living these principles on a day-to-day basis. Now, this is just a list. Behind each of these things is a description of what that means on a day-to-day basis for them. And every policy, every project, every program that they have, every process that they put in place checks against these 10 things and aligns with this. So you can imagine that if this wasn't defined, it would be a lot harder to make sure that you were bolstering your intentions about what you wanted to be and how you wanted to do that. So Google is an amazing example. And actually, you guys, if you want to Google, go ahead and look this up. And there's a lot more about all of these pieces. But even in organizations like a hospitality group like IHG, they have 5 things that help drive their behaviors and actions every day. Asana, which is a software platform, really simple. We're a group of peers, we're healthy and happy, we get things done. You can imagine that those 3 things, you're in a meeting and you're coming up with a new process and they're like, hey, guys, number 3, we get things done. Like, let's move this forward, right? And finally, I want to focus on a company, HubSpot. And again, if you go out on SlideShare for LinkedIn, they have a whole deck on their culture code. They actually call it a culture code. And they're updating it almost annually because they really, really believe in making sure that it is working for them every single day. And you can see that they have these focus on certain words: mission, metrics, solve for the customer, transparent, autonomy. You can see how, if you want to build a culture that focuses on security and cybersecurity, having this embedded in your culture code is going to be incredibly important. So if you're linking to your purpose, and then the how of like how we're doing this every day, if people can see like, oh, I get it. I get how security, cybersecurity, I get how that is going to either bolster or be a barrier to what we're trying to accomplish here. It will be so much easier for them to do the things that you're wanting them to do. It will become natural, become part of their job, and become part of the vernacular of your organization. So the third piece that we see, the third leg, if you will, of a strong culture is the actions. It's where the rubber meets the road. The actions that you and your people take to bring your organization's cause to life must be aligned with your values, your guiding principles, your strengths, and your beliefs. So, we can boil the ocean here, honestly. We could talk about all these different things that need to happen in your organization, that can happen, and all these ideas. But there are a couple things that you must get right from the start that are around building and then developing your team and creating this path. So starting with your why, your purpose, and then your culture code, which is the how. Like, what are those behaviors around how we do these things? You then need to determine those key essential actions that will get you to that future state, or the how of building a culture of security in this case. So the very first action, essential action, we think, is about really, really getting that clarity. What it takes to bring your why to life, right? This must be aligned with your values, your guiding principles, and beliefs. The most important thing you can do is to get clear on your future desired state of your organization. We talk about what we want. We talk about that we need to have everybody own security, but what does that actually look like in practice? Getting super clear. What is our purpose? What is our culture code? What do we want people to be doing, acting, behaving, mindsets? Get really clear. It's like anything else. If you are trying to get somewhere, but you actually don't know what that destination is, you're not going to get there, unless by accident. But very rarely will you actually get there. You can't have a map unless you know your destination, correct? So, using the design thinking principle of insight-based, user-centered design, you must first seek to understand what your actual current culture is, and then define your future culture. And you have to do this with your people. This cannot be something done in a conference room. It cannot be done by, a couple of leaders alone, a couple individuals alone. This has to be done with people so that they can see their fingerprints all over it. They can articulate what it's like today, and they can articulate what it should be like in the future. Because otherwise it won't feel genuine to them, and they won't feel like they've signed up for it. The second most critical next step or action around what you need to do first and foremost is to get the right people on your team. And I know that a lot of you are like, look, I'm dealing with this existing organization. So right team for you might be like, who are the people in your organization that are the advocates, that are the people already displaying these behaviors, and like, let's focus on them and focus on how we can help, kind of pull other people along on the way. But truly using your purpose and your culture code as your North Stars, you've got to scope out what are the principles and guideposts around attracting, hiring, and onboarding the talent that you need to achieve those things. Putting, if I were to tell an organization, like, what do I have to get right first in order to have the right culture? It's all about the people. It's all about the right team. But you can't do that unless you know what you're looking for and you know how to look for that, right? So once you've got the right people and you've got the clarity of where you're headed, the next most important task is to figure out how you're going to engage and develop them over time. You need to provide them with a path that enables them to perform and behave in a way that gets you to your desired future state. You've got to put the systems in place that truly hold people accountable to those mindsets and behaviors. This starts with intention, like this is where we're headed, but it's backed up by actions. Do our policies, our rewards, and recognition reflect the right behaviors, or are they sometimes counter to them? I use the example a lot of times around, we've worked with UPS, and obviously they are, their priority is to get packages delivered on time, but they also say they have a priority of safety, and sometimes those things can be at odds. And so you have to make sure that you are rewarding and putting the right processes in place to encourage the right behaviors. If you're only rewarding on time and not rewarding while doing it safely, then what's going to happen? People do the things that they are recognized and rewarded for, even if they're told to do the other things. So you have to make sure that your policies, your approaches, the path that you lay out for people nudges them in the right direction naturally, right? Think of yourself in this position. Like, if I know that I'm going to get my bonus if I do X, Y, Z, and this other thing is maybe going to slow me down and not help me get to my bonus, I'm not going to do the other thing. And the other thing in this case for you guys is very likely about being concerned on an individual basis about security. Are we giving feedback to those people who are not aligning with our desired behaviors? And then are those people given a chance to change those behaviors? Are we role modeling those behaviors? Are we providing a path to follow? So a couple examples of this kind of pulling through that we've seen. One of my favorite examples is a company called NextJump, which is a software platform for like group buying rewards for organizations. One of their key cultural tenets, so again, getting to like the why, their purpose, and then their how, their culture code, is to treat everyone like family. And when their CEO, Charlie Kim, was asked by one of his mentors if he would fire a family member or commit to would fire a family member, meaning like, you've got people here, you're saying you're going to treat them like family and then you're going to fire them. He said, hey, actually, no, I should be committing to helping them develop, realizing that what he was saying, the rubber wasn't meeting the road with regards to his actions. So what that led to, which is crazy, and you guys can look this up, it led to what they have, which is called a lifetime employment policy, meaning you cannot be fired at NextJump because they truly believe that everyone is family there. And what that means, like the repercussions of that action, is that they are 100% committed to developing people, because once they're in, they're in. And so they now have an incredible culture of feedback, development, of making people successful, and giving them leadership opportunities in safe ways around internal culture things, et cetera. That just by that one thing of saying, like, are we actually backing up our culture code in our policies, made a huge difference in what they were doing. So Another example is Method. Method knew that a key to their success was that they had, very diverse set of people who were individuals and weren't afraid to speak their mind and were bringing diverse experiences to their organization. And so they said, one of our culture codes is that we're weird. We like weird. And so they actually embedded into their hiring practices, what is your weird? Tell us what makes you weird. And they look for that in a person. If somebody can't come up with what their weird is, they probably won't get hired by Method. Netflix talks about how we have a culture tenet around trust. We trust our people. But then they realized they had this vacation policy in place, and this was back in the day, that was very onerous and made people like report and get approval, et cetera. And they're like, wait a minute, if we trust our people, why are we doing that? And they were one of the first organizations to implement a unlimited vacation policy, if you will, or, freedom to take it at will, that they don't have to track it. And their whole point is like, look, we trust you. We treat you like adults. Like, if we really do, then why would we make you go through all this rigmarole? Like, take vacation when you need it. Be responsible. Talk to your manager. Make sure you can, get your work done when you get your work done. We trust you. And And then finally, an organization that I've worked with as well, Chevron, obviously safety is incredibly important for them, given the work that they do, with a majority of their employees out on, oil rigs, et cetera, working with highly flammable things. Chevron makes safety everybody's mission, and it is so embedded in their cultural values and even in their everyday activities. This is the place where, as a consultant, I was walking too fast down a hallway and I had people stop me and ask me to slow down because no meeting was that important. They have taken safety all the way through to the halls of their corporate culture, so that everybody feels personally responsible around safety, in every policy, in every procedure, and every interaction, from leadership behaviors all the way down to the individual. Safety is number one for them. So I promised you an asterisk, and this to me is the piece that you can have all these other pieces in place, but if you don't have leadership behind you, role modeling these behaviors, it is really difficult to push it up the hill. And I'm actually going to steal a quote from the flyer for this webinar that I think Rhonda had found, which is, a business will have good security if its corporate culture is correct, but that depends on one thing, tone at the top. There will be no grassroots effort to overwhelm corporate neglect. And that was by William Malik, Vice President and Research Area Director for Information Security at Gartner. And I could not agree with it more. You look at Google's culture of transparency, and every day it's led by their leaders having an open forum, all hands, every week with every single employee. You look at Virgin and their leadership by Branson around innovation and risk-taking, and you see it every day in what he does. And then you look at the example that I gave you of Charlie Kim at Next Jump, and kind of putting his, words where, his mouth where his, what I'm trying to say, walking the talk is what I'm trying to say, and putting that policy in place where he committed to not firing anyone in his organization because he was that committed to it. Like, this is the type of actions and behaviors that you need if you're going to make culture change stick. And it is really hard to get around that if you don't have that leadership in place. But we can talk about a little bit about what you can do, in your own small circles of influence, because there are things that you can do individually to make change happen. But if we're talking about larger culture change or larger kind of culture commitments, the asterisk of leadership is one of the most important things we can focus on. So just to recap, and then we're going to jump into questions here. The three things plus an asterisk that we see that are critical in cultures that are thriving, that are really helping boost the organization's goals are, having a very clear purpose, then understanding in their culture code how that kind of purpose comes to life and the how you get things done, and then some essential actions that they think about. And that first thing is truly around getting clarity about where you're headed and what you want, having the right team, the right people in place, and then providing that path to those behaviors, like putting the right processes, programs, et cetera, in place that really bolster what you're trying to achieve in your purpose and your culture code. And then finally, of course, the leadership asterisk of it's really hard to accomplish all this if you don't have leadership on board and aligned. So that is it, except for this. I do think that there's something that all of us can do starting tomorrow. And I just want you guys to pause and think about this. What is the one thing that you can start doing to really start shifting your culture? And even if it's with yourself or with your team members, to start making people think about, cybersecurity, security being part of everybody's job in the organization. So is that you, Lewis? Are you jumping back in?
I will jump back in.
Great,
Are you ready
thank
for
you.
some questions? So if you'll switch over to that other slide deck, I'm going to go ahead. I've got a few questions here. If anybody attending has questions, if you would please post them in the group chat, the Zoom group chat, and send them to everyone. And hopefully we'll have time to get to yours. We do have a few questions here, and I'm going to share. There's the question and answer slide. that I'm about to shut off. Sorry, Rebecca.
No, no worries.
Um,
You can switch. Feel free.
let's see, where are you at? Hopefully this is it. No, there it is. Okay. There we go. And hopefully you can see those questions there. And I need to get the chat back up, and bear with me just a minute so I can see. Okay. So we've got about 5 questions to start off with, Rebecca. So first, how do you actually make sure that security is embedded in your organization's culture code in the first place?
Yeah, so this is a tough one because, I'm sure a lot of organizations are sitting out there saying, okay, this is all great, but I'm not the one coming up with the purpose of our organization and our culture code. And so I think what I've seen in organizations, so I work with multinational organizations, and specifically an example that's coming to mind is an organization. I worked with their quality organization, and they had a similar mission of wanting to embed, a notion of quality in everybody's job, not just the quality organization, right? And so what they got really clear on, first and foremost, is even for them in the quality group, like, so what is it? What are we looking for from people? And getting really passionate about that connection between why is that important? Why is quality important? So for you guys, like, why is security important? Like, at the end of the day, what is the stories around, what the bigger impact can be, and how can that connect to any individual in the organization? So you start really gaining momentum around stories around, okay, so if we don't focus on, in their case, it was quality. If we don't focus on security, what can happen? And talk about individual stories, like when they did and when they didn't. You don't want it to feel like it's you're coming down on their behavior, but you do want them to know the importance of their personal potential impact on the entire organization. So it is about really focusing on that. Everybody wants to know as an individual that I have impact on this organization. That is something that really motivates us. So I see the purpose of this organization. I see what we're trying to do here. Like, what is my personal impact on that day to day when I'm coming into work? Why does it matter that I come into work, right? So if you guys in your roles in the organization can focus on drawing that line, creating those stories around, like this is why it's important. For us as an organization and for you as an individual, that's going to help embed it into the culture code, whether or not it's like actually spelled out in your purpose and in your culture code. Obviously, if you have influence on kind of creating this culture code and creating this purpose, absolutely try to hardwire that into it about how important security is in getting to that purpose.
Next question. How do you get leadership on board if they are not already to make these changes?
Yeah, this is, I get this question a lot. It's like, that's great, but my leadership doesn't care, sadly. Hopefully a lot of people on the call today are leaders and can actually just, kind of move forward with this and have the authority to do that. But when you don't, for us, it's about appealing to the head and to the heart. So again, it is about stories. Stories are going to help you guys sell this up and down the organization and get it embedded in individuals. But for them, the stories have to be, okay, what are the numbers around if we don't take care of this, right? Like truly, like what is the cost to our organization, including, but not limited to, like total and utter failure of our organization if there's a security breach, right? But that you guys might already be doing that. So then there's the heart piece, which is around, livelihoods and people being invested and people understanding like their role in this. And it's really thinking about the emotional side of what you're trying to create at the organization and what not doing this will do. And really marrying those two, because every single person, some are tilted more towards the brain than the heart, some are more heart towards the brain, but every single person looks at problems with both lenses. And it's the marrying of the two, the heart and the brain, that will help move you forward with your leaders. But it is really about stories and getting super personal. I would recommend a great book called Switch that really talks about how to make change happen in organizations, and that will really help with your leadership.
Rebecca, what is the one thing you would say that is the most important thing to get right or ensure a successful transition to the future culture of security?
Yeah, this is, so I mentioned UPS earlier. They have good safety numbers, but they wanted to take that to a whole nother level, where, in the truck, when an individual is out on his own, that is what they're thinking about, is how do I do this in the safest way possible? And so, you can translate that absolutely to security. You've got your individual working on their computer, and like what, you want them to be thinking about, having this at the forefront of their minds, right? And so it really does come down to that individual connection and that individual story. So what we did there was we really highlighted individual stories, success stories, failure stories, things that really brought that individual connection to life for people. So, I've read stories about when it finally clicks over for people, the first thing they go is like, oh my gosh, this is so important. Like, how do I give this information to my family as well? Right? Like, you want it to get so personal that then they're thinking about, oh my gosh, at home, am I doing all the right things when it comes to security? Right? So it is really about that individual story, and like, really illustrating to people, in a real life way, versus, something that's intangible, good for the company kind of thing, of how it's important. And that's what we brought to life, for UPS in those stories, was, real stories of loss, of deaths, of, heroes, that had prevented things through having a mind of safety, et cetera. So it is about that individual connection.
What is the biggest barrier to change that you see in organizations?
Inertia. I bet you guys will all feel that. It is, people get stuck in their ways. They don't want to do something different. Don't make me change my password again, right? Like, they just want it to be easy. And so, when it comes back to, so what do we do about that? For me, it's all about the path. It's all about, how do we put things in place that just nudge people in the right behavior, so it's easy. They don't have to think about it, because, asking them to change behavior and to do that on their own volition is a really hard thing to do. Just think about yourself, right? When you're trying to change your own behaviors around something, those 5 pounds that I want to lose every year, right? It's thinking about, well, how do I make that easy on individuals to make that change happen? And a great example, is Google. So Google, as you all probably know, gives, free food everywhere, right? And they have this phenomenon of like almost like the freshman 10, it was like the Google 15 or something. And they really believe, with data, because they are, full of engineers, and everything that they do at their organization has to be supported by data. They really believe that, a healthier employee is a more productive employee, is a happier employee, that, all around. And so they were like, we're making our employees unhealthy by offering them all this food, specifically bad food. So the first thing they did is they took all the bad food away. They took all the chocolate and whatever away. And there was an uproar. People were like, you can't take our chocolate away. So they're like, okay. Like, let's provide the path towards healthier eating versus just mandate it, right? By taking away the bad food. So what they did is they kept all the bad food, but they put it like in cubbies and behind glass that was frosted, where the healthy stuff was unfrosted, the healthy stuff, the apples, the fruit, like everything was easy to grab. It was the first thing that you get to at any of the micro kitchens, and all the like chocolate was there, but you had to dig for it. So basically they provided these nudges to get the right behaviors, and they saw marked change in behaviors and consumption of healthy versus non-healthy.
And the last question, Rebecca, can you give some examples of feedback structures that you see that are easy to implement?
Yeah, so I do think that when you think about changing behaviors, like you can't just throw it out there and then like it's not working and give up on it. It's all about like continuing to give feedback, giving chances for people to actually improve as they go, and doing that in a way that is open and transparent, and that we're all in this together, right? Versus like a performance measurement feedback. And I do think that your rewards and recognition absolutely have to align with what you're trying to achieve, or else you'll have what I was talking about earlier, which is the conflict of priorities, right? You'll have people that are focusing on speed because that's what they're getting rewarded versus safety or versus security. So, the simplest forms of feedback are, just talking, right? Just making sure that if this is important, that your managers are just having one-on-ones every week, as often as they can, and making sure that this is a topic. How's it going? I observed this. That was really great what you did. Next time, if you think about doing it this way, and having it be very two-way. That is literally the easiest form of feedback. It's not formal, so people don't feel threatened by it. It's just a discussion. And, the more you do it, the more it feels like, oh, this is just our ongoing conversations, which is a good thing no matter what, right? There are other kind of more formal structures that you can put in place that, I've got lots of examples of it, but I don't know if you guys remember, but earlier in the conversation, I was talking about this company, NextJump, and because they are what is called a deliberately developmental organization, again, they don't fire anyone. They are committed to developing people. They have put in all sorts of feedback structures, and from the most kind of like in the circle of trust, which is they basically just pair them up with they call them talking partners. It's a peer that they meet with every single day and just kind of talk about everything that's on their mind and kind of get feedback from each other, to very formal presentations where they're presenting quarterly whatever project they're working on, and everybody in the organization gets to give feedback on that. They have a feedback app. So, they have just created this culture that it's like feedback is expected, and it is accepted, and it is revered, and it is seen as a very positive thing. So again, you can do something as simple as just pairing a couple people up and having them talk about stuff, to, building an app or getting an app that provides feedback, to, ingraining this into your performance management system.
Awesome. Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us today. So at this point,
You're welcome.
Rebecca, if you could share that first slide deck starting at slide 20, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jill, and she has some more information about opportunities in ISSA. I'll be back with you in a moment for some closing comments.
Great. Back on your view, Jill.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rebecca. And, I do want to express our thanks and appreciation today as well. Thanks, Louis and Rebecca, both, for certainly what has been an informative session on culture and how to hopefully drive that in our organizations as practitioners. So some future opportunities with ISSA as we work on RAP and keeping you guys up to date with where we're moving from here. First of all, our global special interest group footprint does include other special interest groups beyond just the security, education, and awareness. We have the financial industry, the healthcare industry, as well as women in security special interest groups. And you are invited and encouraged to sign up with as many special interest groups that are applicable to your background and your interests. I can share that I'm a member of 3 of these because they're applicable to me. So I would strongly encourage that. Also to encourage that our special interest group members join ISSA International as full members. We are conducting a full-scale membership drive, and anybody who's a SIG member is granted a 20% discount on an international general membership. That does not include the student memberships. But when you go to sign up for a full membership, if you put in the discount code of 20 SEA SIG16, when you join, you will get that 20% off your first year. And those are, certainly you get more benefits from ISSA as a full member than just as a SIG member. So we do encourage you, please go and sign up and take your career to the next level and take advantage of all the resources that we have at ISSA. Also, as part of our cybersecurity lifecycle program, we offer ways for our members to earn CPEs and engage in the broader cybersecurity community. So we do invite you to learn more about the offerings at issa.org. Again, that is something you can do as certainly as a full member. And the global SIGs are an excellent resource for earning CPEs and continuing your education. So certainly reach out to us at the email SIGS for SIGs at issa.org, and that will get you in touch with all of us who work with the special interest groups. Now, if you are a CISO or a qualified guest, ISSA International is holding our second annual or our second quarter CISO executive event. It is entitled Emerging Technologies from April 14th and 15th this year. It is in San Francisco at the Marines Memorial Club on Sutter Street. If you would like some further information, again, just email us at sigs@issa.org or go to our website for more information. Additional events and webinars include local chapter events. So these are the chapter events and proposed webinar schedules for the special interest groups. So you can see when our next event is in March, as well as when partner events are happening throughout the year. Beyond that, we offer scholarship opportunities. They are currently available. There are deadline and submission dates for each scholarship. Make sure that if you know someone who's deserving of a scholarship, that you spread the word. If there's particular interest in scholarship, Hines College Strategic Partner Scholarship is one of our partner opportunities, and we support up to 10 ISSA members each year with scholarships. There are additional scholarship opportunities available from IC2 and Raytheon. Just make sure you apply before the due dates that are displayed on the slide. So our upcoming partner significant events are also listed here on the partner events of note. And again, reach out to us at issa.org for more information. Sorry, I was looking at two screens. You also want to consider supporting our STEM and cyber youth events. I can't state this enough because it's one of my personal interests. The youth of today are our replacements, and we need to certainly drive them to cyber and cyber interests. They definitely need us as mentors and sponsors, and we can help open the doors for future educational and career opportunities for them. So reaching out will help our youth succeed as we move forward into the next generation of cyber practitioners. Of particular note here is the Cyber Patriot Girls STEM Trek 2018, which is occurring on March 24th of 2018 in College Park. There's also a SheSoft Computer Championship for the girls program and culminating awards ceremony on June 2nd of this year. There are additional youth STEM programs at Mason Game and Technology Academy. There are spring and summer classes still accepting enrollment, and that you can be that your youth can be registered with. So again, reach out to us at sigs@issa.org and we can give you more information. Some other things to consider attending as far as our global SIG events. March 8th, we do have a special International Women's Day panel, and it is entitled Driving Diversity of Thought Within the Ever-Changing Cyber World. Additionally, we have March 22nd, which is sponsored by WiseGate and hosted by the WISSIG, or the Women in Security Special Interest Group. The moderator is going to be Shara Rubinoff, and panelists include Edna Conway, Wendy Betts, and Corey Zordani. So additional events coming up from the financial SIG is a webinar on March 22nd entitled State of Cyber Insurance Market Update and Trends. It will be presented by Ms. Susan Young and hosted by Bright Talk. WISSIG is going to have a webinar on April 26th entitled The Relationship-Driven Cyber Leader. It is presented by Ms. Michelle Tillis-Letterman and hosted by the National CyberWatch Center. And then our own SEA webinar is coming up next on May 18th. It is entitled Cyber Strong, Preparing the Nation's Cyber Workforce, and it's being presented by Ms. Nancy Lamoro and Noelle Kyle, and being presented by Bright Talk. So we hope you'll certainly join us for those future events and educational sessions as we look to encourage leadership as well as innovation among our other cyber practitioners and groups. So also consider supporting our WISSIG and our other ISSA Memorial Scholarships. We do have scholarships available at the ISSA Foundation as well. You can automatically contribute to the ISSA Education Foundation with Amazon Smile. If you're not familiar with Amazon Smile, you can choose the charity or organization of your choice as a preferred charity. And every time you purchase something on Amazon, they give some percentage of that purchase to the charity. So you would specify the ISSA Education and Research Foundation as your preferred charity there on smile.amazon.com. So contact the sigs@issa.org email that we've previously mentioned if you're interested in contributing to our monthly SIG column, or if for the ISA journal, or that comes out typically monthly. And we also welcome those who are looking for training opportunities to reach out to our SAN partners. Our SAN partners host veterans and women immersion academies, and you can reach them at immersionacademy@sans.org. And we welcome you to reach out and sponsor any of our SIGs that we've talked about here today. For ISSA non-members, there is a website listed that you can reach out to for non-member special interest group when you log into the ISSA portal. For any that are members, you can get more information on issa.org. And we certainly hope that all of us are very successful as cybersecurity professionals and continue to innovate and seek change and grow our organizations and our cultures as we move forward past today. We also want to continue the conversation on our global and social media sites. Again, thank you for your time today and your participation. This concludes today's webinar. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be considering joining us in our March, April, and May events held by the Financial, Women in Security, and Security Education Special Interest Group. We would like to thank our partner, the National CyberWatch Center, for hosting today's webinar.
Thank you, Jill. And one last couple of items. We want to remind everybody that our next webinar will be Thursday, March 29th at 2 p.m. Active Defense will be presented by Paul Azadorian with Security Weekly and John Sands from Black Hills Information Security. Keep an eye on your inbox and the National CyberWatch Center's Facebook and Twitter feed for more information about that. Let's see. There we go. If you're interested in membership in National CyberWatch, we'd invite you to visit our website at nationalcyberwatch.org/membership for more information about academic, individual, corporate, and student membership options. Today's webinar has been recorded and will be available in the next few days to view on the National CyberWatch website and YouTube channel. All of our past webinars and slide decks are also available on the at that site as well. We want to thank everybody for joining us and thank our partners ISSA and our presenter Rebecca for the excellent presentation, and we look forward to seeing everybody again soon.